Hello,
How are you today, everybody? So today we're looking at Kleist in detail. In 1789, Heinrich von Kleist entered the military Prussian academy. He was 12 years old.
child soldier.
Yes. Becoming a Prussian soldier meant representing in flesh and bones the ideals of discipline, honor, courage, order and obedience. He wasn't cut out for that. I wouldn't have been cut out for that either. He was enrolled in the army because his family had decided for him. Yeah. It was a military family, like most families, or many families in Prussian nobility. His father had already died, and his mother would depart only a few years later. At the age of 22, however, Heinrich left the army because he wanted to fulfill his dreams. He went to university where he got mathematics, physics and philosophy under his belt, or he started to get them under his belt. Unluckily, this wasn't the right path for him either. He wasn't cut out for that either. So he tried to become a state functionary where he would have made a living, and he became engaged to a general's daughter, which is a very good way to get a living.
Yeah, but another bad choice.
Yes. Still, this was a young man. He was still a bit confused. He was only 22 years old, and he really hadn't found his right path yet. He didn't become a state functionary, and he split up with his girlfriend.
Oh, disaster!
The only thing he didn't give up, and that was continuing, was writing. And until 1811, the year he died, he tried to make a living out of it, which was not an easy thing. So, just a quick question. How can we discover what Kleist liked?
Well, with a person like Heinrich von Kleist, who was born in 1777, you must go for his correspondence. All his written production gets collected and then published. Letters belong to that written production, and letters are the most important instrument that we have to probe deeply into the personality of an author like Kleist. That it is quite a systematic procedure because you read all the letters, because you never know where essential elements might be hidden. This is the way researchers gather information, in this case about the life of one of the most meaningful authors in German literature. Kleist's themes are deeply connected with everyday human life. He was able to get to the deepest core of hidden human feelings and deal with the most striking contradictions in human behavior. In Kleist's letters, a very rational way of thinking comes out. You smell literally enlightenment everywhere.
It was the fashion, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Permeating everything.
Indeed.
Yes.
Concepts like reason, reasoning, the pursuit of truth and happiness through the use of reason again and again. Happiness, Kleist wrote, is the first of all our desires, which speaks out from every vein and every nerve of our being and which accompanies us our whole life long. End of quote. Then the denial of causality through the use of reason, once again, and above all, one pillar of enlightenment. If you are good at something, you should be rewarded for it. Kleist had no doubts about being good, about being a gifted author. This was confirmed also by the approval he received from some literary authorities of his time who recognized his exceptional capacities.
Yes, exactly. So, let's get back to a normal, everyday life basis. Kleist tried to combine a sense of duty, responsibility, good sense, what we now call middle-class expectations. Family, job, kids. He believed this was the natural order of things. I think a lot of people do. When Kleist leaves the army, he describes the legal proceedings he has to go through before being technically out of the military.
We know exactly what he was asked. We know exactly that he was reproached, well, officially reproached, for wanting to leave the army. He was asked if he had connections at court, and since he admitted of having none, they told him, well, why do you want to leave the army? You are too old, too poor, don't know anyone who could help you. And so they proposed him to choose between law and Kameralwissenschaften, which was...
I beg your pardon?
Kameralwissenschaften should be something like royal science, royal chamber...
Chamberlain. How to be a chamberlain.
Yeah, something like that.
How to serve the king in his innermost, or the prince in his innermost circle.
At that time, it was an academic path conceived for civil servants, but he didn't want to do that.
He didn't want to wear pom-poms on his shoes.
No. He had a clear idea of what he wanted to become. The army represented for him 7 wasted years. Quote.
And that's a long time when you're only 22 years old. That's a third of your life.
So, once out of the military, he had a life plan. Don't forget.
A life plan.
A life plan. This is an ever-present issue in Kleist's letters. If you don't have it, if you don't have a life plan, you don't know where to go, and you just let your life be led by chaos and casuality.
You know, I think it's been like that until fairly recently. If you didn't have a clear-cut idea of where you wanted to go in your life, your parents were very worried about you.
Yeah, God forbid.
Yeah, especially girls, get them married as fast as possible.
But in spite of all this reasoning, Kleist didn't know exactly what he wanted to do, what his life plan would be.
Oh, a loser.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
He felt like that.
Yeah.
A melancholy tone begins to appear in his letters.
Melancholy.
Yeah.
That's sad. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Depressed. Yes.
He wrote, I don't fit among people. It is a sad truth, but indeed a truth.
So, now that we're talking about life plans, try to guess what a woman's life plan should be according to Kleist.
Listen to this.
Well...
A progressive author, modern author.
Yes, considering he was groundbreaking, he had a very old-fashioned stereotype of what women should do. Kleist writes about this to his fiancée, the general's daughter from before, and he tells her exactly how a woman should be. She should be provided also with a good heart and kindness.
Wait, luckily he had another rebel sister.
Oh,
Good for us, good for us.
What was her name?
Ulrike. Her name was Ulrike. She didn't want to get married. She wanted to travel the world. She wanted to have fun, mostly in men's clothes.
Girls just wanna have fun.
Yeah. Wow, that was the model.
1810, 1809, 1807. Well, it's been going on for a while then.
The worst thing and the worst aspect of this choice was that she took it all by herself without asking her brother Heinrich for advice. A reproachable decision. Heinrich preached to the others how to be normal and somehow predictable and so on, but he himself, on the contrary, was a complete outsider. And this is actually what contemporary critics adore about him now, because he was far ahead of his time.
The next big thing we know is, in fact, money. So, especially from 1802 onwards, Kleist was in desperate need of money. It's a big issue. The little money his father had left him had already gone. So he begged relatives, friends, anybody who could help him out. He lived off people's charity, basically.
Yeah.
That must have been humiliating.
He wanted to write, basically.
Yeah, so he figured it was for a good reason.
Yeah.
What about his sex life?
Oh my God. Well, we don't know, unfortunately, we don't know anything for sure. But
the general's daughter?
Well, that was a shallow girlfriend. I mean, if you read his love letters, they sound like, I don't know, accountant's letters. They're not love letters, not the love letters you would expect from a guy like Kleist.
Or that you'd like to receive from
a guy like Kleist. Well, listen to this, what he wrote to a former fellow soldier. I usurped to a man, to a young man, I observed your beautiful body with the girl's feelings as you dived into the lake, into. So what do you think?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Question mark.
Yeah, question mark. Of course, he could never have admitted to being homosexual at that time.
No, forget it.
They'd have cut off his head probably.
Yeah.
And he would have been an outcast. Yeah. It was probably, apart from being illegal, it was unspeakable. Then this negative phase in his love life, let's call it that, with panic attacks, depression, physical weakness, all seems to come to an end when he embarked upon his literary magazine, and it was called Phoebus. And this does very, very well at first. And Kleist follows it up with a new innovative journalistic enterprise, the Berliner Abendblätter. What happened?
Prussian censorship happened.
Oh.
Yeah, this was the final knockout blow, unfortunately. It would finally cause the demise of the newspaper. But the Berliner Abendblätter was an original newspaper which published, among other items, news which came straight and legally from the police.
Lots of juicy bits that the readers loved.
But this newspaper was not only about news. There were also essays and parts of short stories written both by Kleist and his co-authors. Here we get to the tricky point. Trouble with capital T.
What was... Oh, yes.
Now you know.
I'm guessing. Tell us.
In one of these essays, a philosopher expressed a sharp criticism of the Prussian government concerning a tax issue.
How to close down your newspaper really quickly.
Yeah. Immediately after that essay was published, censorship hit Kleist's newspaper harder and harder, and news ceased coming from the police.
So, you couldn't write any juicy bits about crimes, so the people who read those wouldn't buy it anymore. Political criticism?
No way.
No way. So what did you have? You've got no advertising, probably.
No.
You haven't got sexy pictures of girls. No gossip. What's left?
Nothing.
It closed.
Yeah.
That was the end of his magazine.
Yeah. Until the end of summer 1811, he tried to find a way out, but eventually he was, well, desperate, so he gave up.
No, he was hungry and he didn't have a relationship to fall back on.
No, he felt defeated and abandoned, and in November 1811 he committed suicide.
And in his writings he actually left a detailed account of how he was going to commit suicide.
Yeah, he was very, very precise, and this is astonishing.
That means he planned it.
Yeah,
he planned
very
it very carefully. So he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
He wasn't one day he just killed himself. He'd actually thought about it. Well, he had no money, had no relationship in a society that was anathema to him and working against him.
Yeah.
And he probably would have been at risk too, because if they thought that he was a subversive.
That could be, yeah, another issue, you know, among a lot of others. So.
Yeah. So, but he lives on, and he lives on in his writings, which are very important.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, recognised as one of the major writers that has ever come out of German writing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
see you next time.
bye.